So I want to explain how this works. And I want to talk about this a little bit more when I present the content I have on New York City and some of its monuments. There is a common characteristic, I should say, of monuments like the pyramids, Stonehenge, Coral Castle in Homestead, Florida, and several other monuments around the world. And that is the stone or rock that these structures are made from. More importantly, where the rock came from. You know what? Let me go slow. Because I really want you guys to understand this, and you won't really hear anyone else talking about this. I actually took a couple of extra days to think about this and let things unfold a bit so that I could give you guys some good information. And the reason you won't hear anyone else talking about this really is because what I am going to discuss is not really common knowledge among those who do not practice or know a little something about ancient magic. I'm going to take you down another rabbit hole when it comes to the Georgia guidestones. You know, the concept of these structures is still all the same. You might as well call it your mini Tower of Babel. You know what the Tower of Babel was? It was a monument to unworship. There goes that word again. Unworship is a simple term I use to describe worshiping anything and everything but God. So first thing to understand is that our world leadership, the occult side of it, they model themselves after the ancient great kingdoms of the world. Babylon, Egypt, Greece, and South Asia or India. These are four of those great kingdoms. So with those four ancient kingdoms, you have the four ancient languages of those kingdoms, etched into the four sides of the capstone that rested upon and held together the four outer stones of the monument. You take the capstone off, the four outer stones collapse. Babylonian cuneiform, Classical Greek, Egyptian hieroglyphs, and Sanskrit. Okay, so that is four major ancient kingdoms sitting at the top, which our world leaders, they all worship the deities of these ancient kingdoms. Are you with me so far? Now, the guidestones looks like a single monument, but this is actually a stone circle of monuments, plural, surrounding a center stone, okay? And I don't think this project was ever finished anyway. The four outer stones represent the four major regions of the world and their dominating languages. You have the Western nations, English and Spanish, the Middle East with Hebrew and Arabic, and the Eastern nations, Russian and Chinese, and Southern, Swahili and Hindi, okay? There's a marker that was placed by the stones. On one side, it has the physical data of the monument, and on the other side, it has astronomic features. The author, the sponsors, and something for a time capsule with no dates. The author is R.C. Christian, which is not the author's name. It could be interpreted as Rosie Cross Christian or Rosicrucian. Let me just say this. The last time the world population was at around 500 million was in 1650. They say the person who had the guidestones constructed was an older gentleman, which means if this person was born before 1950, when the world's population was at 2.5 billion, and he wanted this erected in 1980 when the population was at 4.4 billion, That is almost a doubling of the population within this person's lifetime, which may have something to do with the reasoning behind the number 500 million. The sponsors, or in other words, the people who wanted to see this thing erected, were the seekers of the age of reason. It was a real age, or what I would like to call the age of witchcraft. Do you know who the seekers of the age of reason are? They are the enlightened. They are the illuminated. I didn't say Illuminati, I said illuminated. I'm going somewhere with this. At the end of the Middle Ages, after the Roman Empire, during the 16th, 17th, 18th centuries, there is what's called the Age of Enlightenment, or Great Age of Reason, okay? And the idea was that during the Middle Ages, you had many people who were religiously fanatic. You had, they burned people at the stake. They were very superstitious. Mysticism was rampant. And so after people were able to put more of their ideas into written form, it created a tearing away from those old ideas. And so people began to liberate themselves from things like organized religion, mysticism. They went the more scientific, nature-loving route. And what is ironic is that it actually led them to exploring more rituals and more mysticism and magic. Because this is what happens when people try to separate themselves from God. They just leave themselves open to these other gods or influences. This break away from God concept is the concept of those 4 ancient dead kingdoms that are represented on the guide stones, capstone. The United Nations helped to provide the translations to the capstone. They assisted R.C. Christian in the translations. Why he needed them for that, I don't know. Maybe they were the ones telling him what to put on the stones. Actually, what's written on these stones reads like a UN policy. They are the only ones writing policies on how countries around the world should maintain their populations. The UN does this. Do you get it? Are you starting to put things together? Do you guys know what deism is? It is the belief in a God or creator that does not interact with humans or has left the earth to evolve on its own and has left humans to their own devices. Deism, an unorthodox religious attitude that found expression among a group of English writers, beginning with Edward Herbert in the first half of the 17th century and ending with Henry St. John, 1st Viscount Bolingbroke, in the middle of the 18th century. These writers subsequently inspired a similar religious attitude in Europe during the second half of the 18th century and in the colonial United States of America in the late 18th and early 19th centuries. In general, deism refers to what can be called natural religion, the acceptance of a certain body of religious knowledge that is inborn in every person or that can be acquired by the use of reason, and the rejection of religious knowledge when it is acquired through either revelation or the teaching of any church. Deism core beliefs: belief in a single creator based on reason. The order and complexity of nature and the universe make God self-evident. God's full nature is incomprehensible due to limitations of the human mind and language. God gave humanity reason and conscience so we could develop our own moral and ethical principles. Human beings should be free to find, know, and worship God in their own way. All views of God should be respected, so long as they do not cause harm or oppress the views of others. All human beings are created equal under God, with the same natural rights. So everybody, go out in the woods, get naked, and have some fun, 'cause anything goes. Isn't that what this amounts to? Just being able to do whatever you want to do? Hey, you like freaky sex with whoever? Then just make up some fertility god and exercise your right to free will. So what you end up with is this cult-like nature worship, right? Depending on where they are located, they could be called by different names, like Druids, who many believe built Stonehenge and other stone circles in Europe, where the Druids would perform Galder rituals, or magic rituals. Galder means incantation or witchcraft. Them doing this resulted in a massacre, which is still memorialized to this day. That's what the Guidestones reminds me of. A memorial, a tombstone, which is what drives the businesses of the stonemasons in Elberton, Georgia. They make a lot of tombstones. Now, the reason I bring this up is because this is typically what you need, a Galder ritual, if you want to build or create what's called a ley line. And you can create ley lines off of existing ley lines, such as churches that surround the Georgia Guidestone site, by the way. At least 5 churches surround that area. Do you see? To create a ley line, you often need a structure that is designed in such a way as to manipulate natural energy flow. Usually stones surrounding a center stone in a circle. Because granite is just a bunch of tiny little crystals. You see? All those holes and slots cut into the Guidestones for astronomical reasons is so that you can keep track of the flow of energy through the Guidestones. The sun energy and the earth energy. Do you see? So you know the right day and time to perform your ritual. The stone and the stones of many ley line structures take stones from the quarries in the same area. The Guidestones just happen to come from a quarry called the Pyramid Quarry. The stones come from the land that it is built on. That is part of the energy network. So if you move the stones and rebuild the structure somewhere else, you create additional ley lines. But I'll get more into that in another presentation. Now, the Guidestones were completely surrounded by cameras, monitored by the county sheriff's office. So, they have the footage of the explosion. They have footage of a vehicle leaving the scene with some very well-tinted windows, and footage of a person running to and from the Guidestones in a sped-up camera footage from one angle so far. And the footage doesn't show the time and date at the top. So look, we all know how video cameras work, and we all know they have the footage that is missing. If this was an outside job, the person or persons would be caught already. But we will see if they catch anybody. And I can almost guarantee you that those cameras have motion sensors. My little Blink security camera for my front door does a better job. And it comes with a mobile notification if I'm away from home and something triggers the motion detector. And that's a cheap camera. You mean to tell me the cameras at the Guidestones site can't do that? Give me a break. So, we will see what comes out of this investigation. As many times as this thing has been vandalized and defaced, something like this, it was only a matter of time. And as of right now, I can't really give you a theory on why this was done now. Is it just a simple case of arson by angry demonstrators? Or was it set up internally to divert attention or reveal those who were in support of its standing? Something to cause more division, maybe, in the midst of people arguing about what constitutes a human life. That's all for now, folks. There is more to come as more information comes in, at least on this subject anyway. Be sure to visit woodwardentertainment.com and the Woodward Entertainment store. You can follow me on Instagram at JAEWoodward And as always, of course, until next time, stay awake, stay aware, stay safe, and I'll talk to you all soon.